What is that behind you? Are those headshots?
Those are headshots. I don't have headshots for either of you, but if we could change that, you'll go on the wall. How's that?
Right. Wait. Wow. What am I looking at there? What do you got there? I see a couple of rock hair metal bands right over there.
Yeah, there's a mix of old and new and good and bad. There's David Lee Roth and Gallagher, Little Richard.
Wow.
You remember the early 2000s when still they were sending you the 8x11s of all the people that you were going to interview and
the press kit
photos. And I never threw them out. So my wife is supportive of that kind of hoarding. And here we are.
Oh my God. Same thing with my wife. I'm glad she's not a whore, but she supports hoarding, which is great.
Well, I'm looking at Art's background. That just looks like a respectable number of books.
That's it. Actually, we have more books all over the house and we're moving. So we pulled a lot of books out of there, but you're right. I am a reader as well as a writer, and Vinny's got his books. Vinny's a reader as well as a writer.
That's my Beatles section.
But the difference between me and Vinny and me is Vinny loves everything pop culture.
Sure.
From 1900 on though.
Yes.
Not just
the olden days of vaudeville.
Exactly. That's is that an Ed Sullivan photo behind you, Vinny?
That's a mock-up a friend of mine did of me with the Beatles instead of Ed Sullivan.
Well,
and the young kids think I know the Beatles. That's scary.
Well, where I'm going with all that, my curiosity is there's some people that you speak to in the entertainment business. I come from an entertainment business background, but not to the level of you guys. And you meet a lot of people in entertainment who don't love entertainment. And when you go into their home, there's no artwork related to entertainment, no artifacts. I'm getting the vibe from both of you that it's museum-ish as it needs to be.
Absolutely. Hands down. What's Art got there?
Exhibit A.
Wow.
This is a Comedy Central cookie jar. There were probably 100 made.
I want that.
Now that is more impressive than most things I have. I worked at Viacom for a few years, and it was awesome what you could steal out of the discard bins. Like I took one of Tom Calderon's Kiss Platinum plaques out of
that's cool.
I took a Colin Quinn, Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn bobblehead out of a garbage bin.
That's actually very cool.
But it's not a Comedy Central cookie jar. That is
the apex of pop culture stuff.
Yes, nuanced.
I'll sell it to you for $5,000, by the way.
Where did you get yours, Art? Did you break one?
No, that is the one. It's a great story. Somebody called me and they said, I found a Comedy Central cookie jar. He worked at a cable operator. I think they were made for cable operators. So I said, yeah. He said, you want it? I said, yeah, send it to me. So he puts it in a box, no stuffing, newspaper, wrapping, nothing. And the box is this big. So I open it up. It's in a million pieces. I had to piece that together and with super glue and all that stuff. It was a labor of love.
Well, before I ask you about the podcast and Art, your recent book, and Vinny, your media company, before all that, there was a great entertainment industry news story that came out yesterday where WWE, the wrestling company, fired a lot of people recently. And one of the female wrestlers they fired, they shipped her belongings to her in a garbage bag inside a FedEx box. And she put a thing on Twitter saying, hey, Vince McMahon, thanks for the care package. And the person who shipped that got fired.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Really?
He'd been with the company 15 years or so.
Well, it's bad marketing, bad PR.
Let me ask you this. Did the person who shipped it have some kind of axe to grind with this woman?
Rumors and hearsay. I don't want to get libeled or slander.
Oh, yeah. We're going to
You don't want to libel or slander.
Allegedly speaking. Allegedly. But
all right, what are you, HR? You investigating this? What's happening?
You never know who's listening. Did you ever see in a Zoom conversation that if you click a couple of buttons, every word you're saying is being immediately transcribed?
Oh, really? Wait, by who? By
the algorithms, the AI. It's all automatically doing. If you click,
but they don't make that available to you. That's interesting.
They have it, and where are these conversations going?
Yeah, we probably gave away our rights to that too, without knowing that stupid agreement thing that we say yes.
I know. Right?
Fuck, Art, you and I've had some personal conversations on
That's true.
Okay.
before we get in any further trouble.
Well, I have to say, it's really a pleasure to be speaking with both of you. I'm very familiar with both of you from not only the work you've done, from Vinny, from all your call-ins from Port Authority on
from the bus.
Big fan.
Thank you.
But who is it that pitched who to say, we got to do a podcast?
That was Vinny pitching me.
Which is a big mistake, by the way, because I have nothing to gain from this. I don't have a book out. I'm like, hey, we should do a podcast. And I realized,
are you kidding me? No, here's what Vinny has
to gain.
It's
a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
Here's what Vinny has to gain. He is having the time of his life. He is so surprised at how much fun this is, at how excited he is to do a podcast. He is just really thrilled to do extra work, stay up till 3 a.m, editing, all that kind of stuff. Am I right, Vinny?
Well, you know what? You are being sarcastic, but here's the thing. I protest a bit much. Yeah, it's fallen to me also because Art would gladly cover the costs to have an outside producer do it, but I don't trust anyone with our words right now because, there's so many things that I just feel like I could get it done quicker as opposed to telling you all the notes, take this out, keep that in.
Yeah.
So it is time consuming, but even if someone else were doing all the production, Art and I take it very seriously. So we're like, we had Judy Gold on, who was one of Colin's regulars on Tough Crowd. And that was such a great interview. And it was a lot of work on our part. We had to read the book. I mean, we wanted to read the book. I read books at my leisure, not like, oh God, I got to read this book now in 48 hours, But to answer your question, it was Art's book was great. I felt like I really want him to sell copies or just get people to read the book. I told him he should lower the price. He hasn't done that yet, but he says it's not his call.
Yeah, it's true.
It is true. But I figured the podcast might be a great starting point to just a great podcast about comedy.
Yeah, I applaud what it stands for because I'm one of those people who takes entertainment seriously. A lot of people just listen for the jokes and then they go, oh, that was fun. And then they move on. And then there's unfortunately like the 5% of people, estimated 5%, give or take, who go, well, who wrote that joke? And what were they thinking? And where did they come from? And you guys are along those lines, which is wonderful. You're speaking to kind of an unrepresented, maybe a silent majority out there. I don't know what you would call it, but has it been easy so far to get guests because of your connections, 30 plus years of working with top people?
Well, the genesis of this was we wanted to celebrate the 30th birthday of Comedy Central in a way that they apparently don't seem to be doing.
Yeah.
Which is surprising to me and Vinny. And we thought we'd start with 12 episodes and the episodes would focus on the early days of comedy. We'd talk to people who were there, the people we worked with at Comedy Channel and Comedy Central in the days when it wasn't even clear that a comedy network was going to survive.
Right.
So we started with those people and nobody said no. Everybody's been saying yes.
And these were people we did know. We hadn't spoken to in a while.
We know them. Yeah, fair enough. We know them. We ended up branching out after that because people started calling us and saying, can I get on your podcast? One example that we just did was Wayne Fetterman. Do you know him?
Oh, yeah. He had a bit of a comeback because we saw him on Crashing. He's been in a lot of
prolific
roles.
Yeah, he wrote a great book. He just has
a
book
out. Great book. He wrote a great book on the history of stand-up. I think it's called The History of Stand-Up.
From Mark Twain.
From Mark Twain to
Dave Chappelle.
To David Chappelle.
One of those comics who's definitely much smarter than they lead on with their stand-up comedy.
We had, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think that was the first one we did that wasn't directly related.
Yeah, that came to us. He wasn't on our list. We had the 12
that, but he had he had a connection with Comedy Central as every comic.
Oh, actually, wait, you know what? Yeah, like halfway through the pod, first of all, that was a two-parter because he just had so much. He was so great. But halfway through the first episode, his genuine curiosity about Comedy Channel and Comedy Central, because he truly is a historian, student of comedy, like you were describing, Darren, earlier. An interview broke out where he started interviewing us, and really, about the early days of Comedy Channel. And he knew to ask all the right questions because he did know enough about it to be curious about it. So that was fantastic.
And that's really, one of the things that that had us deciding that, after the 12 initial ones that we're doing, we'll probably keep going.
And Judy Gold's another one that that came to us. She's got a book out.
Judy Gold.
I think podcasts in general are a great outlet for authors because they don't really get booked, right? On a lot of places.
And in this day and age, it's great that podcasts to me are basically audio versions of oral histories. That's my favorite kind of book to read. I'm reading a great one on the history of hair metal. There's been great ones on SNL, but Art, when you were writing your book in the first place, did you know that it was going to be a memoir rather than an oral history?
Yes. Well, I was writing it. An oral history I tend to think of as people telling it to someone else or telling it to yeah. So I wrote the memoir, and I wrote it because I had great stories to tell. And that's how it started. When I got sort of halfway through telling all the great stories, I realized, man, I got enough here for a book, and it's probably worth getting this all down, because people who want an inside look at the entertainment business, the television business, or just corporate life, they would find this stuff fascinating, I assumed. So that's how I wrote it.
At least I did.
Thank you. I wrote it as a memoir. As a memoir, it was all about what I was thinking, what I was feeling, my perceptions, me getting batted around, my triumphs, as well as everybody else's. But it was really more of a personal thing. It wasn't a history. And I've participated in oral histories, and you don't start telling about how you felt when you walked home that night. You know what I mean? It's more about then this happened, then this happened.
But you know what's great? There's going to be a point where I think when we're done with the first season or maybe the second season, we could put together a pretty good oral history based on people's stories of Comedy Channel, Comedy Central, because our first guest, Lori Zacks, we worked with, she gave us a perspective that was interesting and different from ours. Gail Berman, who's the one that we did this week. Oh my God, it was like her first job in TV. And Nancy Geller, which is, I can't wait to edit that one.
Because that was so much fun. And she made us laugh.
We forgot how funny she was.
She is so funny. And I forgot that.
And her stories were great. So eventually I could piece this all together. And I'm a real tech nerd. I was telling Art, there's a service where you could upload an audio file and they automatically transcribe it. Like we talked about, Zoom does it. No, it's called Zoom. Zoom's doing the unauthorized version of it. But there are companies that do it. They break out the speakers, speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3. So I think I'm eventually going to upload all of our podcasts and then make the transcript available for researchers, because there is some great information there. But I might do an oral history. We might do that eventually.
Vinny, we can donate it to the Smithsonian, I think.
Yeah?
I think you could.
Will they cover some of the costs?
I'm half kidding.
The Library of Congress. Hey, the Library of Congress takes everything.
Library of Congress.
Have you seen that? It's
a CBGB punk rock guitar thing at the Met. Who's to say that there won't be a comedy?
Oh, yeah. I saw that, actually. It was
I want to do an NFT of screen grabs. That's the latest rage now. Aren't you familiar with the NFTs? They're selling for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I want to do an NFT of our Zoom with this one will go for, I think, a couple of million easily.
I think so too. I was on a call before this with a guy who books a lot of podcasts, and he was going, by the way, if you know anyone who's looking to sell an NFT, like I know what to do. Wow. That's when you know this bubble is getting scary.
My God. Oh yeah.
I'm staying away from that.
No, I'm getting in on it. It's the next Bitcoin, buddy. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to miss this one.
Well, another thing I'm curious about, anyone who's worked with somebody a long time, who's been married to somebody a long time, you can be in the same room for all these things, but just have different interpretations of what happened. Do you sense that you guys have different recollections of things that happened that were major events?
Yeah. Art remembers me a lot better than I do from back then. He was actually very good. Younger. His portrayal of me in the book is awesome. I don't remember myself.
I remember myself as being younger and better looking, mostly. But it's a good question. And, one of the fears I had about writing a memoir is, especially one where I did almost no research. This was all from my memory. The good news is I have a good memory. The bad news is nobody remembers everything 100% accurately.
Right.
So I had a little bit of trepidation going in, thinking, okay, somebody we talked to, or somebody who's read it, who was there, is going to say, "Oh, Art, what the hell are you talking about? It didn't happen like that." And that was my big fear. So we were interviewing Lori Zacks, and Lori Zacks had told me previously, one of the stories I wrote, she said, "Are you sure that was me? Or was that Vinny?" And I said, "Unless Vinny was wearing a black pencil skirt and heels, I think it was you." And then she finally copped to, yeah, that was definitely me. But then, we had her on and she starts telling stories, and I'm like hoping nothing came up, and nothing did. When Nancy Geller came on, she said, "Let me tell you a story about how Bill Maher came to be on the network." Now I told a story about how Bill Maher, and she starts in a completely different place. I go, here it comes. I dreamed the whole thing, but it didn't happen that way. She got to the part where she says, "And then I said, go see Art Bell. It's the last meeting you're going to have to take." And we met, and they met in a diner. And I said, "Thank goodness."
See, that's the perfect thing. Like that audio with Art's telling.
Validated. Yeah, but I'm doing all the talking here, Vinny, which is unusual for us. The other thing that happened is we are hearing stories about us or about things that we weren't privy to.
Yeah.
We got Carter on, who was at Comedy Channel from the beginning, very talented producer. He produced Bill Maher for what, 28 years, 26 years, whatever the heck it is. So he's on and he's telling us a story about when he was in an early meeting with us, and I was a suit back then, when I started, and he is giving a presentation of what he's going to do at the network, right?
This was so great.
I turned to the guy next to me, whoever it was, and said something like, "This guy, Scott Carter, he's going to be the hero of the network." And he heard me say that, and he said, I was so excited.
And it stayed with him all these years, and Art had no idea.
Had said that about me. Now, of course, I didn't remember it. I don't doubt that I said something like that.
Art was actually, it was a lunch, and he was ordering a hero sandwich, and I think Scott misheard it, and we don't want him to be too disappointed.
No, it was just a great story to hear, because I love hearing when I did something right that I don't remember. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
So when I was mentioning being into a lot of podcasts where they talk about entertainment properties, that, for example, this guy wrote for this show between this year and this year, and then they have no fresh material after, say, 2008. Right. That's all they have. In your case, what year do you guys feel comfortable talking about comedy through? Present day?
Well, because Comedy Central.
Vinny, I know you lasted with Colbert and all that for a long time.
Yeah, well, I did a long run with Letterman, was hopefully my legacy, Letterman and Howard Stern. But you talk about in general, like, because Comedy Central, I'll answer it in a way that you didn't ask, but then I'll give you the answer that you want.
Sure.
In the world of Comedy Central, we're comfortable talking about it up until when we left. I left in 96, just before South Park, when it got there, and whenever Art left, I forget, a little after.
Just after South Park.
Yeah. But yeah, I am very comfortable. So Comedy Central, that's my expiration date. Comedy in general, I could even talk about future comedy. I could talk about what's going to happen in 10 years, I think. Yeah, I feel comfortable doing that.
Same with me, although Vinny is much more in touch with sort of the current comedy scene, especially the last 15 years. It's not that I went on to other things and stopped thinking about comedy. It's just that Vinny, nobody can top Vinny. So no, it's great working with him for that reason, because I love comedy, and I'm getting some of that education from him.
But I was impressed when we were interviewing Kevin Murphy. What is your article going to be published? Do you know, Darren, yet?
You tell me when.
Oh no, you could do it whenever. It's up there. We put it up. We snuck to Kevin Murphy. It's officially up next week, but we put it up there now. And I was impressed when we were interviewing. There was another great catching up with an old friend, that Art, you had said, and this is fantastic, your kids turned you on to riff tracks.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Which is, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Like Art, their dad, I don't know how much they realize how influential their dad was in putting MST on the air, which eventually opened this whole world.
Well, I did turn them on to MST 3000, but they showed me riff tracks. They took me to one of those the live riff track shows.
Yeah.
They said, "You got to see this, Dad. It's great." And I loved it. So
it's growing and growing on that end. Well, what I was getting at, not to like slag anybody, but if you talk about the Howard Stern universe, it seems like anyone who ever worked on Howard Stern has a podcast now, but they have no news stories after they're gone. So you'll see Jackie Martling talking to Stuttering John, and you'll hear, well, when I was talking to Howard, and you think in your head, you go, well, Jackie left in 98. 97, 98, and John left shortly after that. So I'm pretty sure whatever happened is kind of outdated. But in the case of both of you, you've stayed current. You've always worked on new projects. And it's not like you go, Art, that guy who co-founded Comedy Central, that's all he did. Nothing like that.
Right.
I think it's refreshing with both of you that you kept up on relationships. You kept up on the content. And you, as you said, you can talk about future comedy as well. That's a compliment. There's no backhandedness to that.
Oh, that's nice. And what's great is, like, we do admit there's a little of glory days in our, when we talk about things. But what's great is everyone that we've talked to that was there has gone on to bigger and better things. So the glory days soon leads to what they're doing now. And even us as fans relating to it and getting stories from them. So they make us cooler than we are. Like talking to Gail Berman, who did so much. We're talking about Family Guy and that whole thing, how it went away. And then she brought it back and it got even bigger. So hopefully our guests keep us relevant.
Oh, interestingly, I just got to throw this in.
Yeah.
Gail Berman is working on a movie. I think it's announced, so I can say.
Yeah.
If I know, everybody knows. On George Carlin. A biopic on George Carlin.
Oh, the one Judd Apatow is.
No, that's a documentary. That's
a
going to be like a Gary Shandling thing, the Judd Apatow and Wayne Fetterman. But Gail's is a movie.
Yeah. So there's going to be two things out on Carlin. The reason I mentioned that is because Carlin. We grew up with Carlin, and he was foundational for so many comedians today. And he's going to be back. That's the great, and in some form or another. And so it'll be nice to make that connection for our kids or current comedians who really didn't experience it.
Right. I'm looking for an interview that I taped with George Carlin when I was 18.
Oh my
terrible.
God.
I'm trying to find that.
Oh, you have to find that.
Oh, especially since he's coming back.
Well, wait. Can I just suggest, if this is not too incestuous, but maybe when this article is out, you should be a guest on our show to talk about things like this.
Anytime.
Especially if you especially if you find that, because you've talked to a lot of comedians, but I would love to. So you were like a Judd Apatow, huh? Like a boy interviewer?
Yeah, that I can't take credit to being anywhere near his level, because his interviews were actually pretty good when he was 17 or 18.
Right.
I've been unearthing them. I think everyone has a pet project during the pandemic in mind where, hey, let's actually get your interviews onto TV and expand this and digitize your old one.
Yeah.
Listening back, I was able to get my Don Rickles and my Joan Rivers and all that.
We want you on the podcast.
Oh, wait, you know what would be great? This will be so great. So have you digitized them already? Are you
most of them. I have the Rickles and the Joan Rivers and the David Lee Roth on my YouTube. But,
listen, here's what we got to do. Okay, so when you have them when you're ready to share them, because what we could do is we'll interview you, right? We'll talk about you get your story, how you did it, and then we'll play the clip of you asking the question. Then we'll say, okay, now ask it as present day, the way you would articulate it, and then we could play the answer, and we could redemption, man. We could clean this whole thing up. I love it.
Every now and then I'll get an interview of somebody that I spoke to when I was 18. It's somebody like Ted Nugent. I spoke to him when I was like 17 or 18, and then I spoke to him again when I was like 36. It's like it went better that time, and you kind of I'm just on this quest to talk to all these people a second time, but so many of them are in the ground at this point.
Oh my God. He's like Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney. Hey, remember when you were in the Beatles? Remember when you did Hey Jude?
Well, fortunately, you guys are not like that. You're both so natural for interviewing and conversations and all that. So, or do I have that wrong? Were there actually interviews that you did earlier in your career that are horrible?
A lot of my appearances on Howard in the early days were horrible. I don't know.
When we were being interviewed?
No, when you were doing interviews, or is this?
There was one podcast that we did that I found myself, and I had to stop. I was listening too much. I became a listener because I love podcasts, and I'm going to myself, I better say something because just to be part of the conversation.
That was the only pause in all of the stuff we've done. We paused once. Because Vinny's like on top of everything, and I'll fill in if he doesn't. But we were both so fascinated with what we were listening.
I think it was Kevin Murphy. We were just like
we
listening.
Just wait for somebody else to ask a question.
But then we did like the Judy Gold today, and it's so great because she's amazing, right? Like that, she wrote a great book, but she was holding her microphone. Art noticed at the end, like she was holding the microphone like she was doing a club date. And she was performing, she was telling her story, but literally performing for us for 90 minutes. Like there was a 2-drink minimum, you know, and I ordered some bar food.
We were like the equivalent of hecklers. We were just kind of throwing things in now and then.
At one point I said, Judy, I have a request. Like she was a rock star. Could you do the bit about Joe Lieberman's wife, Hadassah? And it's so funny. So fucking funny.
Well, you two have been so generous with your time. I'm just going to ask one more question to both of you.
Oh, we haven't started yet. I thought we started. We were starting now. I thought this was
you're not going to print any of that, are you?
Yeah, go print it all.
We can edit out whatever.
No, you're fine.
I'm kidding.
You're
I
fine.
didn't say no, it's fine.
Well, my last question, as connoisseurs of entertainment, what is the best show on television? Or if you can't go, what one? Got to give me 3. Can I get a pick from either or both of you? Because, hey, I respect both of your tastes.
Yeah, both. Okay. All right,
Russian Doll was a great show. Is that what you're talking about? Or you want to...
Hey, that's recent enough.
Comedy or just TV in general?
TV in general.
The show I just saw, which I was really impressed with, of course, I forgot the name. Shit.
I'll go while you're thinking. This is going to sound...
Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
So beautifully funny, so well written, such a great combination of humanity and comedy and drama. Did you see it?
I've heard I have a thing where I don't watch things until 4 people whose taste I trust. They say it's good. And I think you're number 4 and number 5 on that. So
I'm afraid to watch it because everyone has raved about it. Like everyone. And I almost get annoyed by that. I wish Art would shut the fuck up already.
Watching it like this, you know, like
like it impressed me.
Bullshit, you know what I mean?
But no, seriously, the people that it's been raved on Twitter, right? You're on Twitter, and that's all people are talking about. And wow, so I hope it's as good as Art says it is. I trust him.
I gave you 2. Great shows on TV. Now, I'm thinking.
Okay, my choice, and I know it's going to sound really pretentious, and I apologize, but my wife and I have fallen in love with Korean dramas, K-dramas. And look, there's no surprise that Netflix is spending $5 billion on a studio in South Korea.
Sure.
They are incredible. And the one I think is my favorite that we just finished watching is called My Mister. And you know, these guys, they do 16 episode seasons. Every episode's almost 90 minutes, and the pathos and the heart on their sleeve, but the comedy, they're everything. In one episode, you can get the character comic relief and then hardcore drama, and they weave it all together. That's all we watch now. So that, and the other I want to have to say is Bob's Burger, maybe one of the funniest half hours of new shows that are on right now. Simpsons is great and will always be great, but Bob's Burger is just so goddamn funny.
I'm going to throw in an obvious one too. Mrs. Maisel. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Marvelous.
The
Marvelous or Marvelous.
Marvelous.
Yeah.
With the exception of the portrayal.
Too Jewish. That's too Jewish for me.
There's so much.
Hey, my wife is Jewish. My wife's a Jew, actually. She's not Jewish. She's a Jew.
There's so much in that is so kind of crazy, but like cleaned up.
Sure.
Because that's not the way things were. And the ultimate is Lenny Bruce, whom I loved as a kid.
Did you like the movie, Lenny?
Everything about which
the Dustin Hoffman movie, Lenny?
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
You know what was the best thing about Lenny? Well, anyway, before I finish that. So I love that Lenny Bruce is in that. It just bugs me a little bit that the guy is, sandblasted clean compared to what he really was. I saw the stage play of Lenny Bruce. Did anybody see that?
No. Who was that? Oh, I think I know.
Rich Voss thing.
Who?
Rich Voss played Lenny Bruce in something. I don't know if it was
No, this might be older. Was this the one with Cliff Gorman?
Cliff Gorman.
Yeah.
You were absolutely correct. Cliff Gorman. He died recently. That was not only one of the best performances I've ever seen on Broadway. It was such a great representation of Lenny Bruce. I mean, it went through his whole life.
I read his biography.
He did his routines, and they were really funny. And at the end, it was really sad and tragic. I mean, it was just such a great moment. No, I didn't like the Dustin Hoffman thing that very much.
I think anyway. Cliff Gorman played Lenny Bruce in All That Jazz when Bob Fosse.
Is that right?
I think so. When he was doing
he would have been an obvious,
his life story. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure.
Obvious choice. He would have been an obvious choice.
Kids, check it out on IMDb. I am not completely responsible.
I think you two are even better compatibility-wise hosts than Gilbert Gottfried and Frank Santopadre.
Really? Oh, I love that podcast.
We love that podcast. But thank you. That is
compliments to you guys on putting the work in for all those decades and actually having a great podcast that people are excited for. Thanks really so looking forward to everything that's coming from both of you. And hopefully there is a book, even if you have to get Zoom to give you the transcripts.
Yeah. And we're not kidding. I want to have you on. So I want to get your stuff together because
find the Carlin interview because it's going to be timely too, because he's, because of the movie and everything.
That's in the same box, if I can find it, with a Flavor Flav interview from 1998. So,
what was the context how did you get these guys? Did you say you were writing for Teen Beat? Like, what were you doing?
Yeah,
Tiger Beat.
Tiger Beat wanted Flavor Flav in 1998. No, I started writing for this newspaper on Long Island when I was 16. And it's the kind of thing where they give you a couple of assignments and they're like, yeah, he's not going to come back and do those. And you do them and you're like, can I have some more? And then they give you more and you, can I have some more? And then you take on everyone else's. So there was this venue on Long Island called Westbury Music Fair.
Sure, I know that. That's the famous Frank Sinatra photo with the mafia.
Yeah, exactly.
We're locals.
A lot of things happen there. And, a lot of people are still performing there a little post-prime. And so I interned there and it would be like, so do you want to talk to this person? They're playing there. Oh, okay. And then they made me the editor of that newspaper, that monthly Long Island newspaper when I was like 19. It's like, you choose the stories. Like, hey, is so-and-so available? Yeah. Okay. And
that's
then,
so great.
That's how I got a David Lee Roth interview. And then I started up a podcast about David Lee Roth called the DLR Cast.
Oh, really?
I just unearthed that last week, that interview.
Where was he? Where was David Lee Roth in his career? Was he doing radio at that point?
He was about a year and a half from taking the Stern spot.
Right. Wow.
And I think we can read minds on how that one went.
Yeah.
I love his musical career. We went to see the Vegas residency right before COVID. Love what he does, but it's a terrible interview.
Oh, terrible because of you or because of him?
So the backstory, I mean, hey, if you guys got a place to be, cut me off here.
No.
I'm good.
Tell us.
The backstory on the whole thing is I taped this interview and I'm like, okay, I guess that went fine. And then this other Long Island newspaper posted an interview with him like 2 weeks later. It had the same quotes to different questions. And then Newsday posted an interview with him like a week or two later. It was the same quotes to different questions again. So I think if you're like, how you doing today, Dave? He's like a lightning bolt in your Cheerios, homeboy. And you're like, oh. That's the
you didn't do your unique question. Got it. Oh wow, this is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to do this with you.
What's your favorite interview? Besides us.
But besides you guys, President Company excluded, I think the best way to answer is every time I've ever been excited for an interview, it sucked. And every time I was nervous or fearing the worst, it was great. So I was scared the first time I spoke to Gene Simmons. And then he wound up to be awesome. He dropped the character and he spoke to me another 30, 40 minutes. He's like talking about Jan and Dean with me.
That's so great.
That is great.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that you never find out. Because if you listen to the old Gene on Howard interviews, it's like, I'm rich.
I'm rich, yes. So we have a line of caskets coming out. Kiss caskets. Remember Craig Gass used to do him? I was on once. I was sitting in once when Gene Simmons was on, and Gene didn't know that Craig Gass was going to come out dressed as Gene Simmons.
Great appearance.
Yeah.
Great. He's dressed as him, and he's just chiming in with all the jokes before Gene can.
Just being the dick version of Gene in front of Gene without Gene knowing he was going to be there. That's like when Howard had me come out when Ringo was on. It's like, fuck you,
I
Ringo.
never saw that one.
Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. Talk about it. We'll compare notes when you come on.
You guys are doing great together. Vinny, you're not going to replace me with Darren.
Art, I think you're going to be
one of the lads.
You're the Pete Best of the constant comedy.
Ringo said, am I being replaced?
We got Ringo.
Better Pete Best than Stu Sutcliffe.
Yeah.
That's
he died. At least you'll live.
Paltrow.